Hello, welcome back to my channel English with Aleena. In today's video, we are going to discuss the question and answers of the chapter, the last lesson, and comment what topics you want me to cover in the upcoming videos of my channel. Now, without wasting time, let's get into the video. Question 1. Who occupied the backbenches in the classroom on the day of the last lesson and why? Or who were sitting on the backbenches during M. Hamil's last lesson or why. The old men of villages were sitting on the backbenches during M. Hamil's lesson because they were sorry that they had not attended school more often. They also wanted to thank their teacher for his 40 years of faithful service and their respect for their country that was theirs no longer. In the story The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet, the elderly village occupied the backbenches in the classroom on the day of the last lesson. They sat there attending M. Hamil's last lesson to pay their respect to their native language and the country that was theirs no more. What words did M. Hamil write on the blackboard before dismissing the last class, and what did they mean? Or why did M. Hamil write Vive la France on the blackboard? M. Hamil wrote the words Vive la France in big letters on the blackboard before dismissing the class. These words meant Long live France. This shows his patriotic nature. In conclusion, M. Hamel wrote Vive la France on the blackboard to show his love and respect towards his country and to inspire students to do the same. His act of defiance was significant because it showed the importance of education in preserving a country's language and culture. Question 3. We have all a great deal to approach ourselves with, said M. Hamel. Or why does M. Hamel reproach himself for his students' unsatisfactory progress in studies? Answer. M. Hamel reproaches himself for his students' unsatisfactory progress in studies because he has given them his own personal work to do during school times. Besides, he also gave them holiday when he wanted to go fishing. He also tells the villager that should reproach themselves for not having learned their own language. This line is taken from the chapter The Last Lesson, written by Alphonse Daudet. This line is spoken by teacher to his fellow Frenchmen during his last teaching session. His country has lost district of Alsace and Lorraine to Prussians. According to M. Hamel, no matter what injustice imposed on their language, they should tackle all the situation and hold on to their language. As a result, German had to be taught in the schools. M. Hamel and villagers were exceedingly regretful for having neglected a learning of the French language. M. Hamel blamed the inhabitants of Alsace and Lorraine for the careless attitude for learning French. He even blamed for not teaching the French language seriously. He gave holidays to his students when he wanted to enjoy leisure activities and such as fishing and gardening. Question 4. When a people are enslaved as long as they hold the pass to their language as if they had a key to their prison. Or can you think of examples in the history? Here, a conquered people had their language taken away from them or had a language imposed on them. Answer. Some examples of native language taken away from the conquered people had a language imposed on them are Portuguese became the language of Angola when it was colonized by Portugal. Second, English was imposed on the Celtic people in the Northern Ireland when it was conquered by Britain. Third, Spanish was imposed on the Basques and the Catalans when their lands were taken by Spain. When a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language as if they had a key to their prison. In stating so, M. Hamel is very much right. There are examples in the history when a conquered people who had held their fast to their language, they could win back their freedom from their ruler. Question 5. What tempted France to stay away from the school? Franz feared a scolding at school as he had not prepared his lessons on participles, on which his French teacher M. Hamel questioned that class that day. Besides the warm and bright weather, the chirping of the birds and the sight of the marching Prussian soldiers also tempted Franz to stay away from the school. Question 6. Why were the elders of the village sitting in the classroom? Answer. As per an order from Berlin, French was no more to be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Therefore, M. Hamel, the French teacher, had to leave after 40 years of long and faithful service. The elders of the village felt sorry for not learning their language and were present in the classroom to express their respect and gratitude towards them. The elder of the village were present in the classroom to attend the last French lesson by M. Hamel. They had not only paid their respect and tribute to M. Hamel, but also showed their interest towards their own language, which was perhaps being taught for the last time in the village. What shows M. Hamel's love for the French language? M. Hamel had taught the French language in the school for 40 years and was overcome with emotion when he realized that the villagers would not be able to learn it anymore. He wanted them to preserve their language with them, thus showing his love for their language. Answer. M. Hamel showed his love for the French language by telling his students that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest and the most logical language. What made M. Hamel cry towards the end of his last lesson? M. Hamel cried at the end of his last lesson because he loved the French language and felt pity for the villagers as they would not be able to learn their language tongue anymore. M. Hamel teaching his French in this school for the last 40 years. He was emotionally attached to this school and was genuinely saddened to leave, all of which made him cry towards the end of the final hour. Question 9. What was unusual about M. Hamel's dress on the last day in the school? M. Hamel, dressed on his last day in the school, consisted of his beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and a little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on the inception and prize days. On the day of his last French lesson, M. Hamel was unacceptably kind. He had put on his beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and an embroidered black silk cap that he normally wore only on inspection and prize days. Why is the order from Berlin called a thunderclap by France? Or what a thunderclap these words were to me? Which were the words that shocked and surprised little Franz? Answer. The announcement made by M. Hamel that was an order from Berlin to stop teaching French, and this was their last French lesson, seemed to be a thunderclap to France. He would not be able to learn French, his mother tongue, anymore. The order from Berlin was called a thunderclap by France because it was a shock for him to know that the study of French language had been prohibited in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. They would henceforth start teaching German. This also meant that it would be the last French lesson with M. Hamel. What was the order from Berlin? And what changes did it cause in the school that day? Or what changes did the order from Berlin cause in school that day? Answer: the order from Berlin stated that only German will be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. This meant that French would no longer to be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. M. Hamel, the French teacher, would have to leave. This also caused the elder village to attend the school for the last lesson in French. The order from Berlin brought all the routine hustle bustle of the school like to stand still. The teacher M. Hamel became more sympathetic to his students and taught his lesson with more patience. The students became more attentive in their classes. What did M. Hamel tell them about the French language? What did he ask them to do and why? Answer: M. Hamel praised the French language, calling it the most beautiful, the clearest, and the most logical language in the world. He asked them to guard or preserve their language among themselves and they not forget or lose it. Hamel told them the French was the most beautiful language in the world. It was the clearest and the most logical language. He asked them to guard it among them and never forget it. What did Franz notice unusual about the school that day? Franz noticed many unusual things about the school that day. Usually, when the school begins, there was much commotion, which was missing that day. His teacher M. Hamel had put on his ceremonial clothes, but the most unusual thing that was the village where people were sitting quietly on the back benches, which were usually empty. That day, Franz noticed the absence of routine commotion caused by the opening and closing of desks, repeating of lessons in unison, and wrapping teacher's ruler on the table. The usual hustle bustle replaced by strange stillness that was characteristic of a school on Sunday morning. How did M. Hamill say farewell to his students and the people of the town? Towards the end of his last lesson, M. Hamill stood up to say farewell to his students and the people of the town. Then he turned to the blackboard and wrote Vive la France. Then he dismissed the class with a gesture of his hand. At the end, to say farewell to his students and people of the town, he turned to the blackboard and wrote Vive la France. Through this, he showed his patriotic nature towards his language and to the dismissed class with the gesture of his hand. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to my channel. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Leave a like and share this comment and comment what other topics you want me to cover in my next video. And yep, I will also upload long videos on English grammar topics, so please stay tuned.